Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today, on episode 15 of How to Get Good at World of Warships, I'm going to wrap up the positioning series, and I'm going to talk about carrier positioning. So, what is carrier positioning fundamentally? Obviously, it is a ship class where you don't spend a lot of time controlling your surface ship. You spend a lot more time with your airplanes, and obviously, attacking from the right directions with airplanes, etc., can, theoretically speaking, be an entire video on itself. But we're just talking about ships today, just the ship itself. Because what you will see people do with their carriers is some of them will just sit still at spawn. Some of them will move, but they'll stick very much to the edge of the map. And some of them, probably the worst offenders of all, will immediately find the nearest corner of the map to go hide in. Let's say A1, A10, J1, J10. If you do any of those things, notably going to the corners, don't. It's a horrible way to position your carrier. And no joke, if I could find you, I would boop you with my do not do this as a carrier hammer. Don't worry, it's a fluffy hammer. Anyhow, what you're going to do mostly when you're a carrier is trying very, very hard to minimize the distance between your ship and the main enemy force that you wish to engage. Of course, because planes are reasonably fast, you can go to other places on the map as well. Not saying that you absolutely must focus on one flank or another. Obviously, you go where the opportunities present itself. However, the reason you want to move your carrier so that you're relatively close to your friendly ships and not too far from that sort of main line of combat is so you can reduce the amount of time it takes to fire airplanes to the enemy ships, and also reduce the amount of time it takes for your planes to come back. So the faster you're able to do this, the faster your planes recover, the more you're able to send out new strikes, and therefore be able to do more and more damage. Now, do keep in mind, at the beginning of the game, I guess really the first thing you want to do, take a quick look at the enemy team. Do you see like a carrier sniping division? So for example, like an 899 configuration, made somewhat famous, I guess, by Euro with his recent videos. Honestly, not a very practical division, really, to counter carriers, because realistically speaking, all it takes is really the carrier to just move, and as long as the carrier player is aware of what's coming, they can just start moving at the very beginning. Of course, when you're moving and you know that there is an attempt at sniping, let's say, don't sail in a straight line, sail in interesting patterns, and you can really sort of randomize that to whatever you want. But generally speaking, you take a quick look at the enemy team composition. If you don't see that, at the very, very start of the game, you can actually sit still for a little bit, mostly just to take a look around and see sort of where the enemy ships are, where the movement is, where your own ships are moving towards. You don't want to be moving to a flank where, let's say, it's going to be very easy for you to get caught out. You obviously want to go to a place where, there's a reasonable line of ships that can hold a position for you. In this particular match, you'll see very, very clearly that the northern area, currently around B7, B8, that's where my ships are, and the enemy ships are around D9, and you'll see that they don't really have a lot of ships on the side, so that will be a pretty safe flank for me to go to. I did start in the middle, so, we'll have to make a decision there somewhere. But the big key thing is that when you've eventually started to move your ship, you have to keep a pretty active eye out on, first of all, where your own ship is, and also where the battle continues to evolve to. You constantly want to move your ship closer to the front line, if at all possible. The one big thing, of course, is that the autopilot in World of Warships is notoriously unreliable. I have had battles and whatnot where I've gone somewhere and then the autopilot has just taken me somewhere completely different. So yes, you do have to keep an eye on it to the best of your abilities. It's kind of hard because, again, you do spend a lot of time away from your ship, right? And so that is frustrating, to say the least. I'm going to be moving towards the northern cap here, the sea cap, and obviously trying to help my team deal with whatever's there. So the enemy Bayern has gone down right now. So there's a Colorado, but you can tell very clearly that Colorado wants to get out of here. He's trying to, turn away and maybe start running, but it's a Colorado. Not particularly fast, and of course very, very isolated, so I'm going to go after him. I'm also keeping a very close eye on what's coming up from the south. The southern flank for us does not exist at all. The majority of our ships are in the middle area. So where I'm probably going to plan to be going is probably through the C cap if possible, and then maybe turn towards the middle a little bit, sort of in that direction. Again, trying to keep it so that I'm not completely by myself, but also not super far away from the battle. Depending on obviously the concealment values of your carriers, and that is why I'm not using the stealthiest carrier in this example. Again, if you have a stealthy carrier, you can be sometimes a little bit more aggressive in your positioning, and it does help because you can minimize strike times. Sometimes if you can find, like, let's say really hard cover, so for example, one time on this map, there was an entire south push, so coming from the A cap, and I actually just ended up putting myself right on the island at E5, just north of that. I was able to just kind of shove myself there, and I was able to strike very, very hard at a tier 10 H4 that was trying to come over and take the middle cap. I was launching so many strikes at him constantly that he was constantly under a barrage of everything, and let's just say it did not go well for him. So one thing to pay attention also in this battle, you'll see where my positioning is currently, and you'll also see where the Ranger's positioning is. The Ranger on our team has taken a very, very sort of conservative type positioning. Initially I saw him moving sort of with the team, and I thought, okay, the Ranger is doing well, but you can see right now where that positioning ended up for the Ranger. He's decided to go just hide behind an island, be super safe, where I've actually moved in a position that is still with my battleships. I can see the front line is at the B cap. I'm at C, so I'm reasonably safe. I'm sending some support to help this group down here. There's an Amagi, but this Amagi is being turned. A little bit about plane positioning as well is that sometimes when you are playing as a carrier, you do want to sometimes think about using your planes to maybe push ships around. So especially the way to, let's say, as a surface ship to deal with dive bombers often is to turn into the torpedo drop. So sometimes you can utilize that as well. And, even though I'm not really talking plane positioning, but here's a little tip anyways. You can fly your planes and approach an attack in a way that that the enemy ship will want to turn into you. And you do that, and you hope that when you do that you're going to present a side, a flank, for your own team to shoot at. Now, especially if you've got battleships or whatever that are paying attention, they can get some lethal hits in. Sometimes I'll even just not even attack. I'll just fly my airplanes into an area and say, hey, you want to turn into me, right? and try to invite that turn. And if the battleship, let's say, doesn't do the turn, then I will go for the attack. And if they do make the turn, I'll just hold back and wait for my team to attack them. All right, so continue to pay attention. You'll see that I'm now already trying to move south. I'm trying to get to the B cap. Of course, autopilot is going to screw me here. You'll actually see there's a point in time when I've actually ordered the move and then nothing has happened. Currently, I'm actually trying to target that island right there around the north side of E7, somewhere around there where the Turpids is currently. Trying to get there, but yeah, autopilot apparently could not navigate me through this really wide channel, and I'll eventually have to take manual control. Yeah, this channel that you see right here, trying to get autopilot take me through it. It doesn't really work. And there you go. You can see me. I'm going to the map view to try to order it, and just watch. Autopilot does some beautiful things sometimes. But anyhow, regardless of what autopilot does, this is the objective, right? You can see that comparatively speaking, I am this much closer to that front line than our Ranger is. So the Ranger is going to take a longer time flying his airplanes to target. It's going to take him longer time to get his planes back. And all of that is going to reduce his damage output. So carrier players, you really have to keep this in mind. You really have to constantly be thinking, all right, how do I keep my carrier in a place that's safe so I don't get blapped by anything, but at the same time, I'm in a position where my strikes are coming fast, coming hard. Yeah, no joke, my carrier is going backwards. The one big frustration I have with carrier play, and it is the autopilot. The old autopilot, honestly, the one where it didn't try to automatically plot stuff for you, where you could just like set waypoints. Yeah. I initially thought the system was initially a bit better, but having played with it more, definitely not. So you do have to keep an eye out on what on earth your autopilot is doing, and sometimes, yes, that does require you to take some manual control, set the carrier on the right course before resuming your work with your airplanes. All right, so as you can tell, very, very effective so far. Again, there has been a delay here, unfortunately. Realistically, it would have been better. But now I know that most of the stuff that was threatening the B cap is gone. They've only got a couple cruisers, 2 carriers, and a destroyer left. So I'm going to push up quite aggressively. You'll see me, I'm going to try to push even past where the Nelson is currently at. I don't even need to go behind an island now because I can actually keep going. And so you'll see that eventually, as we get to sort of the late game, you'll notice that the Rangers positioning on our team is just very, very poor, because it still hasn't moved. Even though the battle has evolved, the Ranger still is just not moving. And good carrier players, you'll notice they will always be looking at how to position their carrier in a way that minimizes the time that it takes to fly to and return from the target. It'll be the constant obsession, shall we say, with the good carrier players, is to position their ship in the best possible way. Generally, if you want to divide it, let's say, into phases, early game, definitely start to move if you're afraid there might be a snipe. But you can be a little bit safer in the early stages because there's a lot of ships to keep track of, and if you miss, let's say, a sneaky destroyer, you can get yourself into trouble. Also, by the way, moving your ship this kind of way also has let's say, an ability to limit potential destroyers, from hugging borders and coming over and trying to snipe you, because they think you're in the back line and you're nowhere there. It is also a way to mitigate that threat as well. But anyways, early game, generally a little bit safer. You're typically a little bit further away from the action, but typically as you transition to mid-game, you're going to want to start moving into slightly more aggressive positions. You want to be a little bit closer, and definitely by late game, depending on if your team is winning or losing, you need to be as close to the action as you can safely be without getting massively shot at by, let's say, battleships. Also, keep an eye out for, let's say, land masses that can protect your ship from certain directions of fire. In this case, let's say this island here could have been a spot for me to just go ram my ship in. In fact, that might have not been a bad idea, but I was heading towards the enemy lines anyways. I mean, I'm not too far away from my 2 BBs in this game. All in all, just remember that playing carriers is more than just simply fiddling with your planes. They're still a small but very essential actual ship positioning thing that you have to take into account, because it will affect how many strikes you can get off, how quickly your planes come back, and just sort of what kind of damage you're going to end up expecting in the course of a game. Anyhow, yeah, this game is pretty much over. I'm just really going to go slap this Kagero, mostly because he's still got some reasonable amount of HP, and every bit of damage I do to this destroyer is going to probably be worth more EXP wise than going after the 2 carriers and trying to get a little bit more out of them as well. So yeah, just going to hit this destroyer again, and this game is pretty much over. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this simple carrier positioning video. Of course, take care of yourselves. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again next time.